Good afternoon. My name is Scott Redler, Chief Strategic Officer at T3Live.com. Welcome to today's recap and look ahead. So today, I feel like it could have been worse. I know like around 1, 2 o'clock when the Dow was back down about 100 points, I was like, hey, at least we didn't open down 12 to 14 handles and quickly be down 25 handles, which happened a lot last year, where on some days when the market looked good, stocks closed strong, we'd be in 6, 7, 8 positions, and all of a sudden, boom, a leg sweep with no way out. So you all of a sudden had to, get stopped out real quickly with no way of trading out of things. Well, for today, we were down 10, 11 handles. By the time I went into the morning call, we were down 5 or 6, which was no big deal. And some of the tech names were green, and a lot of them that were strong actually went green. So you had a way to manage the positions to reduce risk. So this way you could wait for patterns to develop. So at this point, still a lot of rhetoric going on back and forth between Trump and China, Trump and Europe, Trump and the Democrats, but I think the market's getting kind of used to it. But at this point, if you did reduce a little risk, it's fine. There were definitely some reasons to do so. Definitely not enough reasons to be all in short, but enough reasons to, clean up some loose positions and wait to see if some upper flags develop again. If you go here to the chart of the S&P cash, all in all, just a real quick rehash. Here was your pre-election sell-off and then the bounce back, and this was when Trump won. That was a nice igniting bar we held here, and then pretty much are in a nice uptrend since, which has been above the 8-day for the majority of the time. Remember when it came in and retested this prior high here? That was at the 21-day, went again, tested the 21-day here at the end of this 2016, went up again, and now, we'll see what happens here. This trend is held. Okay, it held here, it held there. We'll see if this trend holds again. This trend, it's like a rhyme, right? This trend holds again. Well, with that being said, I'm not long the indices because I feel as if we did open lower and we didn't get a way out, I don't want to be trapped. So, but if you're in some stocks that are strong, you get a way out. So let's talk about, some of the stocks that came in long. Tesla first. Tesla, I've been talking about this stock and, pounding the pavement on it, not the pavement, the table, pretty much ever since it cleared this spot. And that was a nice descending trend line to get above. Then you had a breakout retest here, okay, and then you had a nice little buyable move, and then it held into the 8-day, and that was when I bought some weakness, and then I tweeted to buy some above 232 for another trade, and that wound up being another strategy on Friday. So today, what happens if you came in long Tesla because it closed strong? What I did is when it was only down $1 and didn't come in with the futures, I bought a little bit more. I added above Friday's high, 237.85, and then I tweeted that I was selling it at 239. So not only did I make money on Tesla coming in long with it being down $2, I made a little bit more because I was able to add to it. But I was also cognizant that it came all the way from here, so I wasn't sitting tight, especially in a perhaps weaker tape. Now, some of you would say, hey, if this wasn't Tesla, is this a Red Dog reversal? Yeah, traded above this 237.85, put a high in at 239.96, came back below it. So some of you might even be short this, saying, hey, it's extended from the 8-day. It usually catches up to the 8-day. So, okay. For me, I just sold, and now I'm going to wait to see what's next. Hopefully, maybe it opens lower, and it reclaims this spot, and you can be a buyer in weakness, and then it can develop a whole nother flag for another pattern. I also came along Amazon. Amazon did not give me the same way out, okay, but it wasn't the end of the world either. Okay, it wasn't like it was down $15 on the open. Okay, it basically, after a lot of different trades that we had here, okay, throughout the course of 2017, today, if you had to give a little bit back, big deal. This was a great buy here when it took out this wedge. You not only had this buy, you also had an additional trade when it took out the prior high, gave you a 2-day move, and then it flagged. A lot of us were long on this day, added here, and then sold into some strength on Friday. So for me, I took some home long, very small because of where it came from, up 3 days. I'm usually a seller on day 3, not a buyer. And then this was Friday's low. So the first time down into it, I bought a little bit, and then it tried to go green, sold some, and then I got stopped out, and then I traded it a little bit, made some money on the dip, and I just didn't buy back. So what I'm going to hopefully wait to do is see the 8-day catch up. Maybe tomorrow, if we had a down open, I'd be a buyer versus spot. Or if it went a little bit below and came back above, I would be a buyer versus that spot and see if a flag develops, just like this. If you would have sold into this day was a doji. went below it, came back above it. You had a tradable pivot. Here, held above it, closed strong, and then you had your move. So for this, if you're an active day trader, you wait and see what happens the next day or so to make sure it could hold up here. I'm also long the options from here that I'm in for earnings because I do think there's a possibility in 2 weeks when they come out with earnings that this stock takes out all-time highs. Okay, I did sell some. Okay, from here to there, it's up 50 points since we bought the option. So I'm in, I sold some, and I'm going to hold some. That's what I do with options if I'm in it for a different play. But all in all, as a day trade though, we'll see what happens here if we develop another flag and see what type of trade that is. But if you're short-term and active, you probably got out when it went below 811.40, and now you'll wait and see for some kind of flag to develop. Google, I talked about in my note, will 823 hold? Well, 823 held. Okay, so if you bought it versus spot for a quick day trade, cool. But it's a little choppy here, so I didn't buy it back. I sold it on what's it called on Friday, and I'm going to wait. Okay, this was a nice little trade here when it took out this descending trend line, and it gave you a little bit more follow through, but I'm not sure it's ready to make all-time highs while the market could be a little bit under pressure. But for today, it did prove that 823 was buyable for a day trade. Okay, and for now, it's still above it, but I would give it a little bit of time. Just let it prove it could hold. It's getting a little choppy and sloppy here. I like when you have close on highs, some indecision in this, a small topping tail, so you could wait. Again, if you're active. BABA, to me also is on the focus list, on the wait and see list. If you happen to be playing it very actively, maybe you bought some today, as it proved it could hold the upper flag. This was your descending trend line that it broke above, and now it's holding the 8-day. So if you don't want to be perfect, you could be long now, put a stop here, and then add to it if it breaks above this 97. Nice, pattern here. Okay, why is it a nice pattern? Because A, it gave you first a breakout above the descending trend line, gave you some follow-through, held higher, gave you another move, and now it's holding the 8-day as it played catch-up. So this, to me, is still on the go-to list. So right now on my real A-list go-to stock list is it's Amazon, it's Tesla, it's BABA. Google's there. It should be there more, but I just can't play all of them like that. And those are the ones that are above the 8-day that are where you've had the opportunity to buy high and sell higher. Also, Netflix too. Netflix, I came in long and I sold it up $1 just because I was a little worried about the market. And Netflix has been choppy. The market was down 10 handles. This was up $1 pre-market. I'm like, ooh, thank goodness it's not down 3 like everything else. So sold some up and went red. But you know what? Earnings are tomorrow. Not everyone holds for earnings. Okay, I don't. I sometimes have options. I won't have options in this, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's still above the 8-day. It looks good. If you follow our rules and don't hold stock into earnings, you would have sold the banks or reduced ahead of J.P. Morgan and Bank of America. And if you didn't, you still even had a way out because they were up decent amounts on Friday before going red. Once something goes red, we get out and then we wait and see. And then today we talked about, does Morgan Stanley hold up $1, percent and a half, up $1.70, or does it go red? And if it goes red, people are probably going to sell the banks because if Morgan comes out with great news and it can't hold up, everything else probably won't hold up either. So now tomorrow could be different though because they sold off on Bank of America, they sold off on J.P. Morgan, and now they sold off on Morgan. So that's why I was like, don't think it's that easy just to be short into the banks tomorrow because, Goldman Sachs, if it's good, they'll just sell it. You don't know. They try and get everyone off guard. I personally think the banks could be viable. For me, I'm waiting for the 50-day moving average because, at this point, there are different types of trades. This failed up here at resistance, broke below the 8-day, broke below the 21-day. What does Red Dog do? He reduces risk. I reduced risk already on this day because I just felt like it wasn't ready to continue to have momentum. So on this potent down day, I'm not a buyer. I just don't do that. I don't buy on a potent down day that closes on the lows. I wait. To me, I'd like to see it get to the 50-day. 50-day moving average, I will try it again. Maybe I'll even go out and buy options that are a few months out, saying, okay, here's the 50-day. There should be buyers underneath because I still think that they do 3 rate hikes. J.P. Morgan also. You don't want Bank of America? J.P. Morgan, gave you a topping tail on earnings. Okay, so it gave you a way out. It didn't open lower. It actually was green, went red. You could have sold all your J.P. Morgan, whatever. And then today, engulfed this entire range. So to me, I'm not a buyer of J.P. Morgan on the first day. It engulfs that entire range and trades below it. So we'll see what happens here if we can get down to the 50-day. The 50-day is down there. Goldman Sachs is pre-market, so you had to pretty much make a decision, prior to what you want to do. at this point, I would not be long or short into earnings because it's a coin toss. Wait till thereafter. And where could it go? Here's the 50-day. This would be a spot that if it happens to miss, it could definitely be here, considering when these these companies beat, they sold them. And if it's in line, they might try and sell it, and then we'll figure out what's next. Maybe we get a Red Dog reversal around this pivot tomorrow, which is 235, or it opens lower and we see some kind of buyable move here at the 50-day. So at this point, I feel like, thank goodness, the market gave us a way out. If you came in with multiple longs, because on Friday the market closed well, at least what didn't trap you, you could have traded out of some indices. You could have actually made some money in some of the stronger stocks that went out strong on Friday, that went green today, pushed, but then failed, and then you could have gotten out. So at least, again, there was tradable moves to manage positions. I did go out with the least amount of longs tonight. I am in a little bit of Apple. I wasn't in Apple today, but I went out with Apple. Why did I go out with Apple? Because the market was weak, and this closed near highs. It's above this range, so somebody might be thinking something, or somebody might know something. Who knows? But at this point, engulfing bar, closing at the highs, gets me a little long, showing relative strength, especially considering it's Apple, a name that I trade often. Okay, here was a nice little buy there. Went sideways for a week, closed strong, so I'm in a little bit. So if you're on the VTF, you'll see I'm still in some of my options across the board, and only in Apple. And then I'll see what happens next. With that said, let's see if we get more tweets tonight, more volatility. If not, we'll just revisit the markets tomorrow and just keep connecting the dots, making cash flow, as inauguration day is on Friday. So a lot of time between now and then. Bye-bye.